Welcome back to Movies TV Man. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man, and welcome to Friday's edition of the DCEU Daily, where we're mainly focusing on the Batman again. Of course, it's the next DC live action project coming out, and it's probably the most exciting one of the year. But aren't they all exciting? Hang on to the finale of the video as well, where I talk about certain hot takes about all those epic Justice League cameos in the Peacemaker series finale as well. So this morning, Matt Reeves, DC and WB released Catwoman's theme from the Batman, composed by Michael Giacchino, and I want to review it very, very briefly. Now, this theme starts off very, very charming, if you want, but slowly but surely it becomes very, very somber and very sad. It becomes very distinctive about this young woman who's alone in the world, who grew up on the streets. It's very sad, it's very compelling, very depressing as well. But this is a really distinctive piece of music that really describes what kind of character Matt Reeves' Selina Kyle is. As I say, she's alone in the world, she's a survivor, she's very, very strong, because it's interesting, isn't it? If you're a young woman who's had everything in life that you want, there's a spoilt bratness about you. There's this thing that you expect to get everything that you want. Now, someone like Selina, because Selina really is representing young women who have lived on the streets, who don't have the luxuries, who don't have, you know, the latest iPhone, and they've really had to struggle and grift for everything that they've got. And this theme for Selina really sums that element up, and that's what I really like about it. Michael has really captured Matt Reeves' Selina Kyle, and it's so very, very compelling, and it certainly works for me. This is the third track from Michael Giacchino's The Batman score that's been released. Now, in around 7 days, they are releasing the whole soundtrack, which I'm very, very excited about. And so I can't wait for everyone to be able to hear this whole soundtrack. It's a very, very gripping, very, very different soundtrack. We've had some interesting soundtracks and scores for Batman movies. Batman 89 is a very, very interesting one, and I think at the time it was so utterly gripping and groundbreaking. But I think that score was outdone by the Batman Returns 1992 score as well. And then we had James Newton Howard's and Hans Zimmer's Batman Begins, which was another excellent theme. And then they built on those themes, used a lot of those existing themes from Begins in The Dark Knight. And then we went even more with that vision of that music in The Dark Knight Rises. And really, if we think about Batfleck's Batman, Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL revolutionized what Batman sounds like in motion picture. So this is a very, very different type of score, but it really sums up the world that Matt Reeves has created here. So far, we've all heard 3 of the scores, right? I've heard the whole score because obviously I've seen the movie. It's really a haunting score, and it reverberates what this film actually is. So yeah, I was very surprised that Giacchino got this gig. I mean, not that surprised knowing his connection to Matt Reeves, of course, but I think you're going to enjoy the score. As I say, very different, very unique, but it does kind of encompass and sum up what Matt Reeves, the Batman, really is. And Selina Kyle's theme is absolutely brilliant. As I say, starts really, really elegantly at the beginning, but then as the theme goes on, you see and feel the somberness about this world and the character and the world that the character's in. And I think it's an excellent piece of music. I've listened to it thus far on multiple occasions, and absolutely fantastic. And as I say, it'll be great for us to have this soundtrack to listen to whenever we want. So it's a brilliant theme for Selina Kyle, and I love it. Robert Pattinson praises his fellow cast and Matt Reeves. It's like what Paul told me. Talking about Paul Dano. The director made me lucky. Paul was lucky to play a very scary character that works for him. And we were very inspired and had fun seeing Paul play such a character. Do excuse me because Twitter is playing up a bit, so hopefully this uploads because there's a second part to this interview, but it is fantastic to hear all this praise that Robert Pattinson has for his cast members and Matt Reeves, especially when shooting fight scenes against each other. It was fun and enjoyable. I think there were healthy tensions on the set. We did a screen test together and it was clear from then on we could breathe. I mean, Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler is something extremely special, and as I said the other day, seeing him for the first time in There Will Be Blood really got me into him as an actor. He's so good. Just by seeing his energy in the film, I knew exactly where this character was going in There Would Be Blood, and also what was ultimately going to happen to him. But he's such a good performer. He's been a great actor for a very long time. I believe he deserves at least an Oscar nomination for his performance as the Riddler, and we'll have to wait and see what happens here. But listen, no performance is short in The Batman. They're all great performances, well written, they get their time to shine, and it's absolutely fantastic. So on yesterday's videos I briefly mentioned that on Jimmy Kimmel they showed a short little clip of The Batman, and here on Screen Rant by Toby Skelton they describe the scene in detail. The Batman clip shows Pattinson's Dark Knight escaping Penguin's crony. The latest clip from The Batman shows Robert Pattinson's crime fighter identifying a cop who works for the Penguin before escaping through the GCPD. A new action-packed clip from Warner Brothers' upcoming DC reboot, here we go again, The Batman showing the titular vigilante escaping one of Penguin's henchmen, has been released. Set 2 years into Bruce Wayne's crime-fighting career, The Batman will see its titular hero Robert Pattinson attempting to uncover the identity of cryptic serial killer the Riddler Paul Dano, who is murdering the elite of Gotham City on his quest to bring justice to the people of Gotham. Batman also encounters the morally ambivalent Selina Kyle, Catwoman Zoe Kravitz, eccentric mobster the Penguin Colin Farrell, and feared crime lord Carmine Falcone, John Turturro. But even with the assistance of his butler, Alfred Andy Serkis, and Lieutenant James Gordon Jeffrey Wright, the Caped Crusader is set to find himself down a rabbit hole of corruption that connects to his own family. Directed by Matt Reeves, The Batman is Warner Brothers' third revival of the Masked Detective since 2005's Batman Begins, with Pattinson taking over from Christian Bale and the DCEU Batman Ben Affleck. The truth is that Rob isn't taking over from anyone. This is a Batman on another Earth. That means he's not replacing those Batmen. Those Batmen still exist on their own Earths, right? However, this iteration of the character sees a much younger, more inexperienced Bruce Wayne struggling to control his rage and addiction to being the costumed hero. With Reeves citing the late Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain as an influence for the Batman, the new interpretation of the billionaire playboy, who's actually not a playboy in this film, is also set to focus more heavily on the detective side of his vigilantism, and will not follow Batman's traditional origin story, although the origin story is the heart and soul of this film. So what that does is, without going back to that moment lives and breathes as motivation for Bruce and Batman in this entire movie. Ahead of the Batman's release on March the 4th, the marketing campaign for the film has been ramping up. Recently, a barrage of new clips and TV spots have provided an ever clearer look at the reboot. The latest clip from the film, revealed on Jimmy Kimmel Live, sees Batman conferring with Lieutenant Gordon about a police officer he suspects is connected to Penguin. Having seen him in the Iceberg Lounge earlier after this revelation, the Batman clip shows Pattinson's Dark Knight embarking on a high-octane escape through the Gotham City Police Department, Check it out below. We're not going to do that because of copyright reasons. The new clip acts as one of the best showcases so far of the Batman's predominant theme of corruption embedded within Gotham City's institutions, with its exposure being the motive behind the Riddler's enigma-centered killings. The Dark Knight's sudden right hook to Gordon's face, being subsequently chased by all the other GCPD officers, is likely an attempt to cover his escape from the double-dealing narcotics officer and perhaps to ensure that Gordon isn't incriminated alongside him should things go sour. Batman's escape through the GCPD by firing his grappling gun up through the various upper levels of the building is also reminiscent of a similar scene in Batman Begins, in which Bale's Caped Crusader manages to evade Gordon's SWAT team by descending down the numerous floors of Arkham Asylum, with some help from his actual Bat colleagues. Yeah, that's nuts, isn't it, in Batman Begins? Bats actually come to his rescue. I remember that. I think this is a bit nuts, right? But it actually works. For many fans, the Batman sneak peek will be particularly revealing, as it's the first time the relationship between Wright's Gordon and Pattinson's Batman, a vital component of any Batman adaptation, has been closely explored. And whilst the characters are evidently on stronger terms than they were in Bale's first outing as the Vigilante, there remains a subtle hint of underlying tension between the two allies. Although it remains to be seen what the extent of their affiliation is and how deep the corruption in the GCPD goes, there are now just weeks to wait before the clip's full context in the Batman is revealed. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright and Robert Pattinson have got just the right chemistry in this movie. There is a close relationship bonding. That relationship will bond even closer, of course, in the future. So there's this relationship of trust, but also mistrust. You have to understand, no one can be trusted in Gotham City. So, you know, Gordon doesn't really know if this is really a friend or foe, or if this is a nut job. And the same with Batman. Can he trust him, or is he just another corrupt officer? We know Gordon's a good guy, of course, because we've read the comics and we've seen the other live-action iterations. But, of course, Batman and Bruce Wayne can't be sure of anything right now. So it's a very interesting dynamic between those two. And Jeffrey Wright is such a great actor, and so is Robert Pattinson. It's a great little dynamic, and you're really going to enjoy that element of the movie. Catwoman is the only superhero role Zoe Kravitz considered after X-Men. Of course, she was in X-Men First Class. I can't even remember who she played in that movie, but it's interesting. You play someone that many people don't even remember you playing, and then you get the role of a lifetime, because that's what Catwoman is in this movie. The way Matt has crafted her is exceptional. But the thing is, Matt's crafted every single character in a different, exceptional, unique way, where you really get this inner turmoil. You really understand where these characters are coming from. And maybe I wasn't exactly that great in my description of her musical theme from Michael Giacchino at the top of the show, but that's what I was trying to say. That music sums her up so beautifully. The Batman star Zoe Kravitz says that since her role in X-Men First Class, she hasn't been tempted by any superhero role except for Catwoman by Christopher Fiducia of Screen Rant. The Batman star Zoe Kravitz says that Catwoman is the only superhero character she has considered since her X-Men role. The Batman is the next installment in Warner Bros. DC franchise, replacing Ben Affleck with Robert Pattinson again. Well, this is the same site I've been reading off on All Video, and they are obsessed with certain things, like Rob has replaced Ben. Well, we're seeing the Batman in March, and Ben's Batman is a thing in the DCEU in the Flash movie. So he still exists in the DCEU for now. So no one's replacing anyone. The film is said to take place outside of the DCEU, allowing Matt Reeves to recast several characters such as Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon and Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. The Batman will also introduce a new version of the Penguin and the Riddler, this time played by Colin Farrell and Paul Dano respectively. The Batman is one of the biggest films of Kravitz's career, but she previously broke into the superhero genre in 2011 with X-Men First Class. Kravitz played Angel Salvador, who is recruited by Charles Xavier, Professor X, and Eric Lanzar, Magneto, in the prequel. While initially agreeing to help Division X, Angel later switches sides and devotes her loyalty to Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club. Angel survived the events of X-Men First Class and was later killed off screen. Which is dumb, isn't it? X-Men Days of Future Past revealed that Angel Salvador died as a result of Project Wide Awake, and even briefly showed her autopsy photo. It's been over a decade since Kravitz appeared in X-Men First Class. However, the actress recently stated that she hasn't been tempted by any other superhero roles. In a recent interview with EW, Kravitz explained that she felt emotionally attached to Catwoman and was drawn to the anti-hero's authenticity. The Batman actress' full comment can be read below. I think that Catwoman would have been the only superhero character that I would ever consider, just because I feel really connected to her emotionally and also aesthetically. I think there's an authenticity and an edge to her that I'm drawn to. That's the word I was looking for when I was talking about her score. She really is authentic. She really could be your friend down the street, and that's what I like about the writing for her and the performance from Zoe. Fox's X-Men franchise ran for 20 years, beginning with X-Men in 2000 and ending with the lackluster New Mutants in 2020. Can I just be clear about something, by the way? Love him or hate him, whatever he's done, Bryan Singer really created, the 21st century superhero movie. X-Men, X-Men 2, I mean, wow. Those two films are two of my favourite CBMs ever. I think they're probably my two of my favourite Marvel movies of all time. So he really did, do something special. Marvel head Kevin Feige quickly announced that the MCU would eventually introduce the X-Men, up until the most recent Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness trailer. It was widely believed all of the X-Men characters would be recast when they joined the MCU, except for Deadpool. However, with the multiverse being a key storyline in Phase 4, and Patrick Stewart returning as Professor X, the door is open for any past Marvel movie to become MCU canon. I don't know why we're talking. This is an article about Zoe Kravitz talking about her role as Catwoman, and we kind of divulged into going on about Disney. While Disney may see potential in bringing back actors like Ian McKellen or Hugh Jackman, it seems unlikely Kravitz's Angel Salvador will be brought back in the MCU. Couldn't give a shit. And that might be for the best, but Kravitz doesn't care about the MCU. You're the only people who, you're talking about DC and you're talking about the MCU. Kravitz will become an even more well-known actress after the Batman is released, and if the film is a success, Disney may be interested in casting her in a different role in the MCU. Fuck off. She's not going to the MCU. She's going to be very, very busy. She will get her own HBO Max show or Catwoman movie. She's not going anywhere. She is really highly regarded at WB. Not going anywhere. You're dreaming. However, Catwoman could possibly return in the Batman 2. She will. If the sequel happens, if it happens, Kravitz might not even have time to play a role in both the Marvel and DC franchises. Regardless of her future in the superhero genre, it seems that Kravitz is genuinely connected with Catwoman, which is a good sign for her performances in the Batman. What a shit article. Sorry about that, everyone. I suppose I should have read it before I started the video, by Christopher Fiducia, who's normally quite good. Load of crap. But anyway, the idea of that article was for us to discuss Zoe Kravitz. I've said this before and I'm going to compliment her again. She's been so brilliant in interviews. She's been so graceful talking about Matt, complimenting Matt and Rob and her other cast members, and she's been absolutely fantastic. And her performance is even better in the movie. I was very dubious about her casting, calling it nepotism because of her, connection to Jason Momoa, but she earned the right to play this character, and she was absolutely fantastic, and I've got a lot of time for Zoe Kravitz. DC Twitter is sometimes a very difficult place to be. Let me be clear to you. I talk and follow and get followed by, and talk to a lot of wonderful DC fans. Most of the DC fans on social media are beautiful, pure souls who just want to stand the stuff that they love. But we know the people who are ruining that for us. So yesterday, or the day before, whenever it aired on HBO Max, Peacemaker launched its series finale, where it was revealed that James Gunn had this beautiful cameo for the Justice League. Up close, we saw Jason Momoa's Aquaman. We saw Ezra Miller's Barry Allen, aka The Flash. From a distance, we saw Wonder Woman and Superman, and it was absolutely fantastic. If you're a DC fan, you're going to appreciate this. But unfortunately, the propaganda merchants and the hot take merchants went to work. Where's Batman? Where's Cyborg? Hamada! If it wasn't for you, Cyborg would have been there. Let me correct you. Call me the propaganda merchant buster. As I said yesterday, Ray Fisher resigned from the DCEU exclusively on Twitter, saying he would never work for any production under Walter Hamada. Walter Hamada never fired him, and Sarnoff never fired him. Now, if Warner Brothers Pictures, the people there, suddenly get fired when Warner Discovery take over and David Zaslav, and he comes back, I'll be happy. Don't get me wrong. I personally have issues with the guy. I think he's rather arrogant, but he's a great Cyborg. I would be happy about that. But anyway, that's why there's no Cyborg. James Gunn was asked, why no Batman, why not Cyborg? He goes, well, I know, but I don't feel comfortable in telling you because I'm not sure I can. I think it's about future stuff. We know the situation with Cyborg and Batman not being there. Well, listen, it's interesting. Maybe that proves, actually, that may prove my point that Peacemaker and all the stuff we're seeing this year is set after Flashpoint. So maybe that's why Batfleck isn't there. And obviously he could have had Keaton's Batman in a distance. But look, they didn't want to reveal everything. I think it was a great compromise. It's pretty clear that we saw Henry Cavill's Superman from a distance and he looks fucking great. But the propaganda merchants started again. They said that it's another headless Superman. No. Right, okay, let's start with the cameos we've had since Justice League of Henry Cavill's Superman. We had one in Shazam. Well, we didn't see him because he wasn't available to shoot because of scheduling, right? But David F. Sandberg still wanted him there. It was an important part of Freddie Freeman's arc. So he was there. It was great. It worked for me. You know, they did what they could do at that time, right? So one thing hasn't got a connection to the other. But Henry Cavill's Superman isn't headless. He's in a dark, he's at the back. You can't see him. But it's pretty obvious who and what that is. Now, all these propaganda merchants have been going, damn you, WB, where's Henry Cavill's Superman? James Gunn had the idea to have the Justice League there. He puts him in there. He's been allowed to put him in there. It's a huge clue that Henry Cavill's Superman is still canon within the DCEU. Isn't that what you wanted? Of course not. Because you don't want the DCEU to succeed without Zack Snyder. So you'll pluck out whatever shit you can and say something negative. It's interesting, yesterday, a member of the Restore the Snyderverse community actually came out against someone else from the Restore the Snyderverse community, saying this is why everyone hates us. And the point being, these people are causing a problem now within the fandom, and it's a big issue. And so, you know, Henry Cavill's Superman was there. It's clear. This is a very exciting thing. For James to be allowed to bring him there and have him in the distance is a very big thing. It means he's still canon within the DC Extended Universe. This is something we should be really, really happy about. But they didn't stop there, because there's a great gag as Peacemaker is carrying Amelia Hardcore, I think that's her name, right? And he looks at Aquaman and he says something like, I knew the rumours were true that you fuckfish, or whatever, right? He walks off, you came too late, whatever it is, right? And then Aquaman goes, I'm so fucking fed up of that rumour. And Ezra Miller's The Flash says something great, really funny, I thought. He says, it's not a rumour. So Aquaman goes, fuck off, Barry. I thought the whole thing was great. It was extremely funny. But apparently now this means that the DCEU and the characters that Zack Snyder created and set up, he didn't create these characters, by the way, he adapted versions of them. But anyway, apparently Zack Snyder's castings have now been turned into a parody. It's not a parody. Let me talk to you slowly, right? In James Gunn's Peacemaker, in the Suicide Squad, and that universe, right? That's the world they live in. They swear, they make dumb jokes. It's perfectly fine. When you see Barry Allen and Aquaman again, they won't be talking like that. But in that instance, in that situation, it's fine for them to joke, it's fine for them to be sweary. And when you see the Flash and Aquaman in the Flash movie, and when you see Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom, they won't be like that. And that's fine. It was just a little gag. It was a great cameo. You should practice saying thank you, James Gunn, for doing that, for creating, you know, that extended universe moment, that connective tissue. This is what we're going to be getting in the entirety of the DCEU. I'm happy there are already connections there, but this is what they're doing now. There's going to be a connective tissue, and if you're a DC fan, you're going to be very, very excited about that. And if you're not a DC fan, now some Snyder stans don't like the fact that they're called non-DC fans, but think about it. These are things that DC fans would be excited about. Why aren't you excited about it? Because DC doesn't exist to you unless Zack Snyder is behind those DC projects. And there lies the problem. And even if and when the Snyderverse is restored, you're still going to come out with your hot takes. Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3 was amazing. So much better than what Hamada's doing. So much better than the Hamadaverse. People are fed up of your negativity. Even people within your own movement are fed up of you. And one echoes the other. And that's the problem. This channel and my Twitter account and my timeline is a positive place to stand and celebrate the future of the DCEU, because we've got quite a future to look forward to. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.